apparently our producer's pulling something up.
Yeah, well,
blanket time.
Are we looking up blanket time?
Yeah.
I was just blanket trimming for an infant. Oh my god.
Oh, it's just this. Oh, dear Lord!
You're listening to Apostates on the Fringe, the podcast where we discuss current events from the atheist leftist perspective. We're sponsored by Atheist Society of Knoxville, and we're your host. I'm Alistair.
I'm Dustin.
And Sam.
What you drinking?
I have, from the Wiseacre Brewing Company out of Memphis, Tennessee, it's called Starless. It's a Schwarzberger black lager. I had no idea what this beer was when I went to the store, so I flipped it over to see what kind of natural aromas or anything it had. And it had this description I kind of want to read to you guys because it's absolutely absurd. And it says, one time Mr. Raccoon took a long walk through a long field of tall grass. When we got to the edge, there was nothing. It was space, a vacuum. Being an adventuresome tiny bear rodent, he jumped off, but not into something, into nothing. As he fell through the starless abyss, in swooped Senorita Nighthawk, grabbing him by the neck scruff and flipping him off further into the darkness. There they came upon Archduke Flying Bear, and they all sang a song of beers and ignorance and bliss and laughter before going poof and becoming nothing. This nothing becomes an ethereal, smooth, dark lager from Thuringia. So that's what I'm drinking.
So it's made out of raccoons?
No, bear rodent.
Bear rodent. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, a nighthawk and a flying bear.
And void.
And it's pretty good. It is obviously a very dark beer, but
yeah.
I still don't know what it tastes like to them. Like I don't know how to describe. I don't know what that tastes like. What does flying bear and bear rodent taste like? I don't know.
I would think like hairy butt.
You almost made me spit out my beer, Sam.
Well, my beer is pretty fancy this week too. I tried to get even fancier this week. This is the Love Hamdels cake style. I don't even know what kind of brewery this comes from. It just says it's a pastry snout.
Snout?
Yeah.
What? I mean, describe that to me. Like,
oh, well, it's kind of weird. It's imperial stout, but it has cacao, coffee, Earl Grey tea, caramel, vanilla, and milk.
Earl Grey tea? That's fancy, sir. Are you drinking that with your pinky out? Or?
It's got a lot in it. It's
That's a medley.
It's a hard to describe taste this first time, but
Would you get it again?
Maybe. Like, I try to mix it up. It's a little thick, but that's why I have that and a really easy beer to drink over here too. This is a classic, the Vanilla Black Horse.
You finally done with that 10% bad boy that was...
Yeah, no, that's been kicking my ass. I'm sure I've been slurring by the end of these episodes.
Same, or Al, what you got?
I'm doing the Sweetwater 420, the Mango Kush again, because I found it. It's starting to be back in the stores, and I'm so happy about that.
That's fancy. I haven't. I still haven't come across that. I didn't get to travel a lot this week due to things I was doing this week. So, but that's fun. So Josh Duggar got arrested.
Yay! But he's already out.
Yeah, he is out on bail, and I guess they didn't label him as a flight risk because of how recognizable he is, apparently.
That's dumb.
Yeah, he has access to money, you think, and he could get a plane anywhere you'd want.
They did restrict him from having an internet accessible device, like even smart TVs. Not
even smart TVs.
Not even smart
But
TVs.
No Netflix for you.
He's allowed to see his kids as long as his wife's there.
All like 80 of them?
I think 7.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he himself has 7 children.
Okay, it's 7.
You know, they claim to not be part of that Quiver Full movement, but they 100% are.
They absolutely are, and like.
Mm-hmm. The Quiver Full is basically like have as many children as possible. The wife is the subject to the man, and like the hierarchy thing, and it's just biblical to say the least.
Oh, so the quiver is her vagina. Got it.
Right. So she's obviously known this was an issue with him.
Who put that software on his the spy software?
That I do not know, but I know like he apparently got in some trouble back in 2019 for it as well. And
Wasn't he accused of molesting
she
his-
had 2 more fucking kids with him since then.
Yeah, he was accused of molesting like 4 of the family.
Well, that was I think prior to
prior
like
to.
there's other charges or something that came up in 2019. I don't have the full detail on that, but
He was accused of molesting his sisters. Yeah,
but that happened like many years before.
That was years prior, I do believe. But so it was funny because there was some software called Covenant. I don't know. It's the word Covenant was in there, and it would report to his wife and like any activity. But then I guess this guy's
trust in their
this
marriage.
guy's kind of techie though. He installed like a Linux thing to have a separate hard drive where he kept everything else, and that's where he discovered over 200 images of like child pornography from toddlers as young as 18 months up to 12 years old.
Than 18 months.
Was
I
it
think.
younger?
Yeah.
When I saw that, but still, it's still fucking disgusting. And over 200 images they found, and one of the investigators said it was of the top 5 of the worst they've ever seen.
Jesus.
And I'm not going to read the article I read on Yahoo because they actually described what was in the video, not graphically or anything, but just what the children, and it was just pretty awful. And over 200 of them. And he's supposed to represent some biblical family and biblical.
I think
life
he does
values.
a pretty good job of representing a biblical family, if I'm honest.
I mean,
this is pretty much what I expect out of anyone that's like that.
Well, you got to think when he got caught as a teenager molesting his sisters and friends, I think he got charges or something there, but the police knew about it, but he got out of it by being sent to some church camp. That changed him, which clearly didn't do anything.
Why is it always the loudest Christians that end up getting with these charges of, molestation, things like that? It's always coincided with religion.
Yeah, I think all of them do. Religion draws abusers. It's a misogynistic covenant, so if you want to have a book that tells you that your wife has to listen to you, you're going to become a Christian. Mm-hmm. So it draws abusive people. Like, just as we're saying with cops, as we say every week with cops, it draws abusive people that want power. The church gives you power too.
Yeah. I mean, well, my mom, who wasn't very religious growing up, when I was an adult, she moved to a town that was like a highly religious town, and all of a sudden, it didn't take her long at all to realize she has to put that religious front on if she wants to make it in any way, and she did it it was easy for her, even though she'd never really talked about God when we were growing up. But all of a sudden, I'm a Christian, so there's a lot of people that see that there's a certain population that looks at you as superior if you're Christian, so people walk into that to get the...
Yeah, if you're in a smaller community, if you're in a smaller city or county, you're expected to join the church because that is the community. So a rejection of the religion is a rejection of the community, and that's how they treat outsiders.
Yeah, I've heard of very similar things out of Utah, where atheists out there really kind of difficult to live in some of those communities because of how populous Mormonism is there. So
you move to a small town in Tennessee, one of the first questions you'll be asked by everybody is, what church do you go to, or have you found a church yet?
Yeah, you have to choose.
Yeah, and I never know if you're not out, it's hard to answer that question because if you're an atheist and you don't want to be considered an outcast.
People fake it. I think it's even more weird when somebody's even more foreign, and that's the only way they can try to integrate into American culture. If they're an immigrant or from something, then they have to definitely do that to fit in because they're already an outcast. So to even pretend to be a part of the community, they have to jump into religion. But I think our main point is you have to join the religion, and then it's full of abusive people like this over and over again. So this is a guy with a TV show, right?
He was on
the 19 and counting, 18.
It was 17 and counting, 18 and
17
counting, and 19 and counting.
Okay.
With the parents who were, I guess, the main.
So I know that stuff's heavily edited, but they can't edit out that much creepy. There has to be clues. Even we talk about sometimes cancel culture, like, are people trying to, like, how much are people going to be able to watch these shows and they can read the subtext of what's really going on? They can't hide that much. Like, that type of abuse within their family, then I'm sure it comes through in some way through the footage. Not like I ever watched it.
I never did.
Didn't really. They edited. The one thing that you saw is the older kids pretty much having to give up, especially the girls, had to pretty much give up their life to take care of the younger kids. I believe there were some of the girls that became adults and they were still there taking care of the siblings.
And what about blanket time? Like, I know that was a thing that was kind of creepy with them. I don't really know what it was because I never watched the show, but apparently that's a thing. And
I don't think I saw that on the show. Not that it was there. I only watched a few episodes, though.
Why did you even watch a few?
Because I fucking watch weird shit all the time.
Okay.
Things like, I'm a curious person. Yeah, I knew it would be pretty wild, but...
Okay, so we did take a brief pause to look into blanket time because I remember it being pretty fucking stupid. And so it is. It's basically training for a baby or toddler where they're placed like in a blanket with a toy, and if they move off that blanket, they get smacked with like a fucking ruler or a similar tool. Like, okay.
So beaten infants, because yeah, it's an
Because
infant.
they won't stay
training.
on a blanket.
Like I'm not even mean to my dogs. Like,
Yeah,
don't do that.
I
Like,
mean, yeah. What kind of behavioral issues will that give a dog if you do that? So what does that do to a human?
Jesus, man.
I mean, it makes you fear the people in your life. That's what it does, and that's why all those kids behave a certain way, because they know they can be hit.
Oh.
Yeah,
So,
that's why they
that
got that
happened.
glazed over look in their eyes. It's from being beaten constantly and probably molested by their father. So
Yeah,
Or-
you got to wonder, like, who else in that family? Because, you know, a lot of times when they're sexual abusers, they were abused themselves.
Yeah, that's very
know.
true.
And he's one of the older ones. Like, what really fucking goes on in that family?
Apparently a lot. I mean, pedophile in itself, but having also molested your family members previously, and now this, like, dude's a scumbag.
I'm still disgusted with the wife for sticking by him. Apparently, he's going to live at a friend's house, so he can't live with his kids. Apparently,
Well, I mean, true biblical values, like, she can't leave him, right? Like,
that has to be what it is. Where she just, because of God, she can't leave. But this man is likely touching your children inappropriately,
and that's why biblical values are fucking toxic.
Yeah,
that is the biblical values. This is the community. Or at least from our atheist perspective, we're far away from this shit. It's fucking gross. The Duggars were always an extreme example of a religious family, but you could still see it when you meet religious people. You could see the connection between, they're basically the same. These are just the famous versions. So I'm sure it happens on the same scale
so they
in our
got
community.
shut down. Apparently, they moved to a family here in Tennessee, not far from here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, they should hit us up. Maybe they can be on the show next week.
No. But yeah, you gotta wonder what's happening with that family too.
But these are federal charges that he's facing, so...
Yeah, those are federal. In fact, some dude was like, "These are the worst of the worst crimes."
Yeah,
that
he
we've
said
seen.
one of the top 5 worst of the worst that he's ever seen.
It was
And yet, so they found all these images, even the ones deleted, because nothing's ever really truly deleted on a hard drive. And he pled not guilty to every single charge. But, I mean...
Yeah, that's right. The liberals probably hit it on us. It was Antifa.
Do what?
They hit it on there.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he's got to have some reason. If he's not guilty, then what was it?
Those damn dirty liberals planting evidence on his fucking PC.
Exactly. To bring down the religious right.
Yeah, this is ACAB of the week.
Al, you have a story for us.
So this happened the 4th. So is that 2 days ago?
Yeah, this is the 6th.
The backstory is a man killed his wife or his girlfriend, whoever she was, and her child. Really bad. Nobody's going to defend him for doing those things. But he also took his 4-month-old baby and went on the run. Police did not issue any kind of Amber Alert because they knew where he was with the baby. They were on a high-speed chase. I guess he wrecked or something. He kind of went up on a curve, I heard, and kind of stopped.
The police were calling it a slow speed chase.
Yeah, well, they chased him. He ended up getting out of his car and apparently was holding the 4-month-old. And a lot of news articles are saying he was holding the baby as a shield. To me, this makes absolutely no fucking sense because a 4-month-old baby is not even going to give you close to the coverage you need to be a shield. Who would think that a baby's going to do it? If anything, he was holding the baby as I got this baby, don't fucking shoot. A shootout,
like a
and yeah, I don't know who. Of course, the cops are going to say he shot first. We don't know that at this point. What we do know is this 4-month-old baby is dead because the police shot at him while he was holding a 4-month-old baby.
And killed him in the process, of
yeah,
course.
Yeah. He killed them both. But I think I saw 20 fucking shots were fired at this guy.
Right. And this was in the middle of, I guess, heavy traffic. They stopped the entire freeway to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what's the ethnicity of this person?
Oh, come on.
I was about to say.
This is a black male.
I was about to say, they're not killing no white baby.
No, so yeah, they shot the child was shot at least. I think was hit at least once, but died of the injuries in the hospital later. Following that,
It's
did he
when
have
you
a
hear
gun?
stories of Russian hostage situations where they're just we have hostages there, and they're like, oh, we don't care, and they just go in and just shoot everybody. That's kind of the American police too. If you're black, it doesn't matter if you have a hostage. Oh, that hostage is of color too. Who cares?
And I don't think we have any video of this incident. Only the reports from.
Oh, you saying Mississippi doesn't have body cams?
He actually was from Louisiana too and was traveling into Mississippi. And then I guess Mississippi State Police ended up going in. But I found this paragraph interesting on this. It says, after hitting spike strips, the vehicle Smith was driving eventually rolled into a grassy median on I-10 at mile marker 40, whatever. His car became stuck, and as Smith exited the vehicle, he was shot dead by police. So this article doesn't even mention a shootout or anything like that. He was leaving this one says he was leaving the vehicle and they shot him, and he had a baby in his arm. But they're saying that they don't know if the baby was actually struck by a bullet or shrapnel.
What other what shrapnel could it be hit by other than projectile bullet? I mean, there wasn't an explosion of a grenade or anything.
Yeah, I've seen different any event like this that's fairly new until we get the body cam footage. We're hearing all different, this happened, this happened, this happened. No matter which story I hear, though, whether the baby was still in the car, whether he was just getting out of the car and had the baby with him, whether he had the baby and was holding the baby as he was shooting the cops, none of it changes it, in my opinion, where the police should not have fucking fired at this man, knowing that there was a 4-month-old baby nearby. Under no circumstances. They had bulletproof vests on. They could have hidden behind the car. You do whatever you fucking need to make sure this baby does not die.
I'm not going to say best case, but from the PR standpoint, from the police, the scenario is that he has the baby in one hand and a gun in the other. That was the only imaginable scenario in my head that these police would have fired upon. But of course, we don't know the situation. But yeah, with what you just said.
They're that afraid of their lives, so to speak, that they don't give a shit. They would care that one of their officers caught a bullet more than that kid catching a bullet, I guess.
And as you said, a 4-month-old isn't going to really provide a whole lot of coverage. I mean, if he is shooting, you'd have someone, I don't know, legs, I don't know, any number of things.
They're freaking 18, 20-something inches. They're not that big. I had one.
Well, you said he was lit up with 20 bullets, so
that's how many were fired.
statistics.
We don't know how many actually hit him. We know that at least one struck the child or the baby.
the statistics of bullets being
But
shot
they did
at
say
him.
the
They were
the
not
bullet
trying
did
to
not come
aim.
from his
I mean,
gun.
this is common sense anyway. Though.
They're not aiming for
like,
precision.
Using a baby as a shield or body armor isn't going to work. The bullet's going to go straight through that baby. Like, it's not protection. So I don't
No.
think that's...
It's protection on a psychological level because he was. If it was true that he was using it as protection, he thought these cops have morals and they won't shoot a baby, and they were like, bet.
This was a black man. I doubt he believed that.
I don't know. He seemed desperate too.
Yeah. Wow.
So before we move on, I do want to just touch on, there's not really a story, it's a video that was shared to Reddit. And I sent to you, Al. It was basically a police were exercising a search warrant. This cop goes into a garage and opens the door, and as he does so, he kind of casually, like, the door hits one of the vehicles. And then he kind of stands there looking around and stands there and then takes his hand and then forcefully slams that door open into the vehicle repeatedly, just for no other reason to, as a fuck you to the homeowners. And then, Al, you said something kind of funny to me. You said, that's fucked up. Did he face any repercussions? And then that's when I laughed because, repercussions, that's cute.
Yeah.
Because I doubt it.
Yeah,
Honestly.
no.
But what a piece of shit.
Yeah.
What an absolute piece of shit. Complete disregard for their property. And you see this all the time when they're serving, even when they're in the wrong damn house, they'll break shit down. Mm-hmm. They'll break shit, and then the bill is stuck with the homeowner. But what a complete piece of shit! And that's a subreddit, by the way. I was on. I'm a total piece of shit.
It's,
Yeah,
it's just all cops.
but like, just I don't know. Like, what drives? Like, what is in your fucking mind that you're like? You think it's a good idea?
That's what that same thing that drove him to do
bullies.
that is the same thing that made him become a police officer.
Yeah, they're just
so that
bullies.
he can get away with that.
Yeah.
So let's go for a third. I posted this one of this Christopher Bauer from he's with the fucking Alabama State Troopers. He was accused of raping an 11-year-old girl.
Oh.
But I believe that happened. He was arrested last week for it. But so he worked for the FBI previously, and ended up getting like pushed out. He wasn't formally fired. They pushed him out so that he'd leave, but his records show that he had other sexual assault allegations against him. And so he just, when he tried to become a cop with the Alabama State Police, he wrote a fake letter from the FBI saying he was in good standing. And they just fucking accepted this. They didn't call. They didn't talk to anybody.
I saw that.
They just were like, okay, the FBI says...
At face value, this is fine.
Do you think I could write a fake letter and get join this police force too?
Apparently, I mean...
I'd probably have to cut my hair.
You would think a quick follow-up from their supervisor who's taken his application to be employed there. Be like, oh, you're with the FBI.
It should be a red flag anyway for someone to go from the FBI to state police and no explanation for why you left the FBI.
No.
Maybe they felt really honored. Yeah.
He had a letter, Al.
Yeah.
You'll need
They probably felt honored that he chose to take that position, that he thought that joining that police force.
You may be right. We
Yeah.
we have a former FBI
Yeah.
special agent with an outstanding letter of recommendation or some bullshit.
Want to talk about local ACAB, more homeless camp sweep-ups today.
Okay, so locally, go ahead, Sam. You're talking about the sweeps.
Well, this has been an ongoing issue in Knoxville, as Knoxville has planned to trying to get rid of their homeless situation by sweeping it under the rug, and apparently every time they sweep it under the rug, they decide that they want to use that rug later, so they sweep it up again. So they moved these, displaced the population from a camp. I think they've been... That's pretty much Knoxville in general. They try to act like they're doing better by doing the bare minimum, and they, destroyed a camp, and then people were like, well, that's fucked up. You didn't even, tell them you were doing it. Like, oh, we're sorry. We're going to give them a 2 weeks notice next time. And then they moved them again, and now they just destroyed the other camp of where they sent them to before. So basically, they're just like in this process of like, don't get them the first time, we'll get them the next time. They're just like cleaning up every single camp they move to.
The last time, when you say clean up, the last time I saw this, they were actually just destroying and...
Oh, yeah.
They take all their shit and
they took all their shit.
They throw it into the big dumpsters that they have lining
they're like,
up
die,
there.
bitch, haha, we got your shit. Try not to be poor next time.
Right.
Sorry we destroyed the mental health and drug rehabilitation centers. Go suck it. Bye.
Yes, sucks to suck.
Yeah, they don't care. Which probably leads us, while we're talking about the sweeps. Austin, Texas, they just passed Prop B.
Proposition B. Yeah. This is Texas being Texas. We haven't had a Texas segment in a while.
I mean, this is a problem that is going around nationwide in different cities. They're doing these sweeps and stuff, but...
Well, Prop B takes it a step further because...
Yeah, so it prohibits sitting, lying, and camping, or panhandling after 7 o'clock on the sidewalk. So, simply sitting down on the sidewalk can get somebody arrested. And, there's a $500 fine attached to it. You have to serve some time. And what happens, it's... I talked to a friend of mine down in Austin about it today, and she, one point she made it real quick was, I could sit on the sidewalk and read a book, and nobody's going to fuck with me at all.
Yeah, exactly.
It's 100% for the homeless community down there.
Right, and I want to clarify real quick. This is in certain public areas of the city and areas around the campus as well, but it's criminalizing homelessness in the area, right? It makes it a crime.
Absolutely, yeah.
As with a lot of laws, it's a permission to fuck with certain people. Like drug laws have always been that. Oh, we think there might be pot in the car. That gives them, they won't fuck with some guy in a business suit coming home.
Right.
That's what drug laws have always been, a permission to fuck with people. And this is just a permission to fuck with people.
So the situation down there, though, they had a similar ban, I guess, few years ago, and back in 2019 a group came in, I believe they said it was Homes Not Handcuffs, that came in and they had talked about putting the people in homes.
3,000, right, was the number?
No, this was 2019, previously.
Okay, sorry.
They had planned on putting them into homes and stuff, and they got the ban lifted, but they didn't do any work after that. And then these other organizations came in. One of them is led by a city council member who hangs out with Proud Boys, is friends with Enrique Tarrio's baby mama and stuff. Just a shitty person. And there's a couple other groups that are still, one of them has he's big with the Republican Party. He went to the police union to help get funding and shit. So they have all this fucking money into propaganda for Prop B when it came up. They put all fucking canvassing. So as far as who actually voted for Prop B, it ended up being a lot of Democrats too.
It was 57% that voted for Prop B, I believe, and
and 50% of those were Republicans.
When I saw, the percent that voted, I was like, this is very liberal Austin. I was so surprised that notion would have been presented, but who knows, with the propaganda and how they worded it. I'm sure it was, protect our campus because they specifically put the college as part of that bill.
I mean, right, I understand. I mean, like we said, liberals, Democrats, they're still they're still not poor people. This is a classist bill. Mm-hmm. And if you are in the upper class, you don't like to see homeless people. I mean,
the NIMBYs come in Republican and Democrats, and that's what it is. It's the not in my backyard. Oh
yeah,
they don't want to see it there, so they got all this funding, started canvassing, putting out propaganda, got everybody to vote to pass this. Of course, this bill does say you get 300. Was it 300,000 or 3,000? 300.
It was 3. They won 3,000.
That's not going to be enough for that.
No.
But the last time when the last ban got lifted, that was part of that too, is build homes, and it never happened. So now one of the things down in Texas that they're pushing for is actually building these homes for the people, or, getting them into some kind of home. But then there's the people that, like, they don't want if they build an apartment to house the houseless, they don't want it in their they don't want it in their community.
No,
they don't say, the homeless are dangerous. Well, once you put them into houses, they're no longer houseless. You're doing better for your entire community if you house people.
Yeah, most people see it as like they want to just sweep the problem under the rug. I think that the big problems with what leads people to homelessness are a lot of what we've destroyed the mental health safety nets, especially in Tennessee. There used to be a mental health safety net where if someone loses their job or because of a mental health breakdown, they would get sent to a mental health facility, but those have all been shut down. So there's no safety net. They're completely on the street. And the same thing's True with drug addiction.
That's what I was going to bring up next.
It's that, and it's seen as a crime.
It's punitive instead of rehabilitating.
And
they're thrown in prison.
So if they have, a lot of these people have both mental health problems or that. And the homeless population are unpredictable and dangerous because of these reasons. Like my ex-girlfriend used to work at a homeless shelter, and it completely changed her idea of like how that works in those people. Like it's a complicated issue. Some of it is a temporary housing crisis. People come to a hard time, but those people can bounce back. But a lot of the problems are because of drug addiction or mental health, and they just want to sweep the problem under the rug by destroying their house and doing something else. You're not going to fix those problems until you have actual access to mental health. When you stop decriminalizing drug use and you can be like, oh, I'm sorry, you need to go to rehab, or it's usually that and therapy. People that are addicted to drugs are usually doing it because of some mental trauma anyways.
Well, it's more than that, too. It's the rest of the system, too, because once you have a drug charge and you spend some time, guess what? You're never getting out of it. Or employed at that point. It becomes much harder to find.
And you can never get out of that cycle.
And so, right, you can't get out of the cycle, so that's can keep you homeless.
Yeah.
And it's the whole system, because the United States is more punitive than it is to rehabilitate or provide, like you said, mental health access. We're shitty at it. Absolutely shitty at it.
So my friend down in Austin, she works with Stop the Sweeps down there. Her group on its own, she goes and they physically support the houseless community down there, provide them with things they need. Right now, there's an occupation going to and protest where there's a rather large group of people camping out and saying "fuck you, we're not going." But they do not have fundraisers or anything going with Stop the Sweeps, but she did give me a list of some other organizations that are fundraising, and what they're doing with the money they fund is they're trying to pay some of these bills for people, help them get out of jail once they've been arrested. I think some of them are trying to get people into houses, but these are smaller groups. They can only do one or two at a time because of funding and time and all this other stuff. But if you want to help these people, I know some people in Austin may be listening, but Street Forum is one group, Little Pedal Alliance, Austin Community Advancement Brigade, or ACAB, and the Black Trans Leadership in Austin. And all of those, if you want to throw some money their way, it'll go to good use. Another one is Monkey Wrench Books. They have a medic team that can use funds and stuff.
And a list of those organizations will be posted on our show notes, or you can visit our website, apostatepod.com. It'll be there as well.
These organizations are on the ground in the community helping directly, so definitely support them first. One big thing, do not give to Austin Mutual Aid. Do not.
Okay, then.
They've apparently raised a whole bunch of money, $2 million, and they're just sitting on it and not putting it in the community. So
we didn't mention them when we had the Texas energy crisis, did we?
I don't think so.
Okay, I was just curious. You have to imagine, though, that I know it's kind of like randomly bringing this up, but the housing prices in Austin has to be kind of high because, I mean, here in Knoxville, it's even gone up. I mean,
It's just because we've become popular and everyone's moved here.
Well, I mean, also, I don't know if we mentioned it before, but there's a housing crisis almost
Everywhere?
nationally.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
There's also a building crisis now,
the
so
price
they
of
can't
lumber.
even make,
So
they can't even make new cars.
Yeah, so the average price of homes have gone up $30,000 because of the shortage of lumber.
Yeah.
Austin's housing looks almost identical to ours here.
Yeah, I'm not
Which
surprised.
isn't affordable for a person on minimum wage
No.
as a single person.
I mean,
Or a person working
we're
part-time.
just hitting that point where we're running like another housing crisis. We're running at like next generation's just fucked. Good luck, y'all. Like us millennials are already fucked. Or, am I the only millennial here?
No, we're all millennials, and that's why
I thought Al was Gen X.
No, they keep telling me I'm a millennial.
They keep telling you.
But like, so I think about like what kind of world we're into now. Like, I refuse to bring a child into this world now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not having kids because it's becoming increasingly more difficult to survive, and the U.S. is doing nothing to help the poor, the underprivileged. They're now making it harder. And in fact, as we're talking about with Prop B, illegal to even be fucking homeless, to live, to sit, to sleep on a bench or somewhere with some sort of shelter or just shade, sunlight, just anywhere, because it's unappealing to fucking someone walking by.
That's exactly what it was. You know, here in Knoxville, we had a whole camp that was next to the shelter. Is it Carm?
It's
there?
Carm. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was under the underpass. They had a community there, and whether we liked the sight of that community or not, they felt safe in that community because they had the community. You know, like a community in of itself, like what you build those relationships, you're going to feel safer with those people. It may not have been safe by our standards.
Yeah,
but
I'm
it
sure
would
if
be,
we walked through the camp, it wouldn't be safe.
right?
But, yes.
But like, it's better than sleeping alone somewhere. You know?
Yeah. I mean,
I have my gripes with Carm though. I know
Karma is shit.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Carm is the Knoxville Area Rescue Ministries, and I actually had to. We do regular financial classes for the bank for those people, for the homeless community, on how to budget, how to, once they get back on their feet, how to survive. And it was very apparent that as soon as I got there, I didn't really know anything about their program. I knew that by their name alone that it was very Jesus-y, but they forced the fuck out of that there, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was appalled.
Their shelter is not. I mean, it's not good. There's a limit on how much you can bring in. You can't have pets. You can't have any like charges. It's just really limiting on who can actually stay there as well. But anyway, the city decided to turn this area where we had a community of people living into a day park for the houseless community. And they put a gate around it. It's only open from like dusk till dawn. And then they lock it all up. And it was because, you know, there was trash around there. And they wanted it to look prettier. Because they're trying to build these corridors out for people coming to visit Knoxville. And they were making that corridor not so pretty. So they took it away from them. And so now, like, within weeks of that day part going up, I started seeing people just sleeping on sidewalks in the middle of, like, heading into downtown. They spread out a good bit, and every now and then they'll find a place to form a community again.
And they just do the shuffle and they clean it up.
They clean it up. But I saw this from Austin. I found this on the Stop the Sweeps page, I believe. Actually, no.
It's just a society that is refusing to handle the actual problems of the crisis, so they're handling the physical problems because they don't give a shit about the actual problems. They don't care to actually, like, work on health care or housing issues.
No, and it's cheaper
they just want
to
handle,
house them than
put
to leave
spikes
them
on
the street.
chairs.
Yeah.
What was
Put
that now?
spikes under underpasses.
It's cheaper to house the houseless than it is to leave them on the streets.
But I mean,
it's
that requires a little empathy, I guess. But
Yeah.
they don't care.
But you're right, 100%. I saw stories where they're starting to put spikes,
Yeah,
or
aggressive
they separate
architecture.
benches so people can't lay on them.
right. So the problem with the sweeps and stuff, and like the camping ban, this is what I found on the Stop the Sweep Austin page. It says, "My name is Alvin. I've been an advocate for the homeless on the streets for years. February 2019, I was sleeping in the woods when the camping ban was in place. The police woke me up and issued me a ticket for sleeping in an unauthorized place. They did the same the following week. I was forced to make a bad decision because all I was given were bad choices. I went to the creek tunnels that night to sleep. When I woke up, it was raining hard and the water swept all of my things away. I nearly drowned, but I survived. My friend Susie did not. She died because of the camping ban, because houseless folks were forced to hide for almost 23 years. The ban was lifted 5 months later. It was too late for Susie. Susie, I'm here for you today, not in vain. I pray for the other 186 people that have died that year in 2019. Now, in 2020, there have been 254 needless homeless deaths. We are your neighbors, your community. We should not reinstate the camping ban. We should protect each other. I ask you, as your neighbor, and for Susie, vote no on Prop B." Well, obviously,
Prop B
people
passed.
did.
Prop B
Yeah.
did pass.
They just want them to die. That's
But
the plan.
that shows the how serious these bans are, like for the houseless community. Like they literally die in the streets because of these bans.
Okay, so something that happened in Tennessee, but I also learned recently today is Ohio governor signed a similar bill banning the teaching of critical race theory in Tennessee and in Ohio, and or I guess revoking federal funds for schools that do. So Al, why don't you kind of fill us in on what we know about critical race theory and what that mean, or what they're wanting to happen in our schools with that.
All right, so some of the things that are covered under this bill that will not be allowed to be taught in public or charter schools. One race or sex is superior. Any individuals are inherently privileged, racist, sexist, or oppressive because of their race or sex. So in other words, like all white people are racist, that can't be taught, but it's not being taught anywhere. A person should receive adverse treatment due to their race or sex. Their moral character is determined by race or sex. A person bears responsibility for past actions by another member of their race or sex. A person should feel discomfort or other psychological distress because of their race or sex. A mediocrity is racist or sexist or designed to oppress members of another race or sex. The United States is fundamentally racist or sexist. Promoting the violent overthrow of the U.S. government. I'm really hating that they're taking that out of our schools.
What? Yeah, I don't even see how that is. That's throwing an orange in the apple pile.
Promoting division or resentment between race, sex, religion, creed, nonviolent political affiliation, or class. Ascribing character traits, values, moral codes, privileges, or beliefs to a race. The rule of law does not exist, but instead is a series of power relationships and struggles among race and other groups. Americans are not created equal and are not endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or governments should deny to any person within the government jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. Like I said, none of this is currently being taught in Tennessee schools. In fact, who is it? The man who introduced the bill was asked, like, can you name any schools where this is being taught or any instance where this has been an issue? And they're like, no. Like, they can't name anything of it. They're just... They're wanting to prevent it from ever being a thing. A friend of mine actually put it pretty well, that she's like, I just spent a semester writing about anti-literacy laws in antebellum America. These laws seem like an echo back from that. Enslavers knew literacy was a tool for liberation. White supremacist legislators know education is a tool for liberation.
This has been a Republican talking point. It's actually nationwide. They're losing their shit over this because, especially Fox News lately, of course, always. But they don't want schools saying that the United States is inherently racist, that the system, the justice system, everything else is inherently racist, that they don't want us to say that white privilege actually exists. They're wanting to prevent the teaching of all that. And here in Tennessee, of course, I doubt like a teacher's going to say white privilege is a thing.
In the
I mean,
public
it absolutely
schools,
is, obviously, but
in college they'll tell you that, and that's why they hate college education.
does this apply to colleges as well, or is it just
No. Of course
No.
they can't apply that to colleges. No.
Okay.
But that's the point. That's why they hate colleges. Is because that's where you become liberal, is when you go to college.
The thing is like, how will this affect lessons on slavery and stuff? When, I mean, it's barely taught in Tennessee schools as far as I know anyway. It wasn't taught much when I went to school here. But it really limits how teachers teach true history in a way. Because it's basically like saying, don't talk about a racist history in this country. So Dustin said federal funding. It's actually state funding.
Called out.
Yep. So
I fuck up occasionally.
the State Education Commission would withhold funds from schools found to be teaching components of critical race theory.
Critical race theory.
It says the legislation would likely prevent Tennessee schools from being able to accept new federal grants to teach on racism and inequality. So it's forcing schools to decide whether they want state or federal funding, because the federal government is offering grants, could fund schools if they include this into it. So that's probably why these laws are passing, because they know the federal government is working to teach kids about some of this stuff, and our racist ass state legislator does not fucking want it being taught here.
You know what's pretty telling? When I Google critical race theory, guess what the first thing to pop up is?
What?
ProggerU. It's an ad from ProggerU. If you type in critical race theory, the first thing that pops up is ProggerU, the way they look at critical race theory.
Well, I'm not even sure.
It's coming to high school, colleges, workplace, diversity training near you. What do you need to know, and how can you stop it? First thing that pops up on Google.
The ProggerU, they were actually used in some classrooms in public schools, their videos, because they marketed it to schools. And it's all fucking racist fucking bullshit that they're spreading, but they managed to get into schools. I think they're not in there now. I think people have been like woken up to that, but they market to parents and stuff as like being like a tutor, a form of tutoring or stuff like that to get.
So I would bet that ProggerU is a big one that created this law. They're a huge money making.
Well, I would expect to see more and more of these pop up, because just like those transgender athlete bills, started popping up without really any
the
issues.
transgender thing, I think that like the racist side of Republicans, just Republicans in general, they pick on the easiest person to pick on. That used to be like the gay community as a whole, and that's become harder and harder for them to pick on that. But trans people are harder for cis white normative people to understand. Like, they don't completely understand what gender expression is. They don't completely understand how someone can feel differently. So that's like that's the easiest path of least resistance that they can like start targeting bills at. Like I said, they used to push that at just the gay community in general, and they can't do that anymore. So they always target the easiest way, and that's why it's targeted.
No, I
at the
think
trans
my
community.
point was that when Al was discussing the article earlier, that, the person who introduced the bill was asked, can you name any schools? And
he's doing this for Prager U, because that's their point.
But
yeah.
what I'm saying is a lot of, I expect to see this more and more as they preemptively introduce bills like this, again, to, even though it's not happening or they can't cite any sources or cases of it happening, just because they can, and they have the votes in their local state houses and senates to pass them.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, when it talks about Tennessee funding schools, don't we have a shitload of money for Tennessee schools that is just like floating there that isn't being given to schools? Like it seems like I've seen some outrage over
Tennessee's
that.
not very good at spending the money they have. I mean, I remember during COVID relief, they were sitting on quite a lot of money that didn't get spent. Mm-hmm. So Tennessee is just shit in general of spending the funds that they have, that they're just sitting on massive resources. So it's nothing new, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But you said that these aren't being taught in schools right now?
No.
And don't you think they fucking should be? Don't you think that, I don't know, that white privilege does in fact exist, and that
Well, they wanted the whole purpose of this is aimed at poor whites, because a poor white will tell you, to get into a conversation with any of them, I've struggled in my life. White privilege doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't understand that if they were a black person just as poor, that they would. Would be.
But
way
how
harder.
do you convince white people to be racist? By telling them, you've had it hard too because of the classist system. The classist system that we provided. I mean, how do we get you to vote and be on our side?
I completely recognize that.
Yeah.
I haven't had to face any kind of struggle. Of course, I'm a white cis male. I have literally nothing in this world, in the United States, that's against me. So, but I recognize that I have that privilege. Like, I don't have fear when I get pulled over. I'm not going to get denied for a job because of what it looked like.
I have fear when I get pulled over.
Well, of course, yeah.
The stickers on your car alone.
Yeah.
When I get pulled over, I'm like, oh, hello, officer, I'm white. And they're like, yes, you are. Okay, you may go.
But I recognize that I'm not going to get denied for a job because of my skin appearance. I'm not going to get denied for housing. I'm not going to get denied for, lending.
Well, you also, you could pass off as a conservative. Me and Al can't.
Yeah.
I have long hair and tattoos. You could put on a tie and look like you could fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
People at home that have never seen Dustin.
I'm very vanilla and fucking boring looking. So for all of you,
I'm white, but I'm still a target for cops because of how I
bet
present.
Sam could pull off the normie look better than I could.
Yeah, of course I could.
I tried to. So I took a CPR training last week, and it was through this CPR place here in town, and I'm like, I probably don't need to go in there with a fuck the cops shirt or something like that. So it took me 20 minutes to find clothes that would come off looking normal. I wore a flannel shirt to cover my tattoos and everything. I went with a friend, and afterwards I was bragging. I'm like, look, I look like a normie. And she just looked at me. She was like, you did your best.
An attempt was made. No, but to my point, I do think some of the things ought to be taught to...
Yeah, they absolutely should.
Because I think I read a report that, even the schools themselves are inherently racist. Black students are...
And classist.
Correct.
Yes.
But they're more likely to be disciplined, I think, up to 3 times more than their white student counterparts. And then the system itself, of America, isn't itself racist. And... Of course, they want to just gloss over that and pretend that they want to erase racism, and that's what their attempt with these bills is. To
how do you teach about the Jim Crow era without acting like racism was inherent in the government?
The big one that got me was the one about the history of the United States and it not being talked about, the racist past of our government. And it's how can you properly teach history without discussing how racist our government was? Because, as an adult, when I got out of high school and started learning about all the things that I did not learn in high school, honestly, I was pissed off because I thought that stuff back then. I'm 38, so about 19 years ago. Like, that's when I, like, started realizing how bad the schools failed me. And started learning more and more about, like, our true history. And to think almost 20 years have gone by and they haven't fixed that yet.
I mean, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Like, fixed it. Like, what they have a purpose for teaching it that way. Like I say on a lot of issues, like, I think there's a lot of leftist issues that one of the difference that I see between liberals and leftists is liberals think that the system's broken, but we can fix it, and liberals understand that the system is made this way to benefit the
leftists. You mean?
Leftists know that it's to benefit.
It's working as designed.
Yeah, it's working as designed, and that's how the education system is working. It's working. Yeah, as designed.
I would say the history from what I was taught in school was heavily glossed over. I know we touched on a few things, but for the most part,
the Pilgrims and the Indians got along, and they had a Thanksgiving.
But even the Jim Crow era things, like, just gloss over that. It was very brief. They're more interested in teaching world history and things like that versus how shitty the history of the United States really is in terms of how we treat fucking minorities and marginalized individuals or groups.
I remember learning about the Trail of Tears, at least, in high school.
Yeah, so, during these discussions on the bill or whatever for the funding, our fucking state representative, Knoxville, Tennessee's Justin Lafferty, he said that the 3/5 compromise was a bitter pill that was necessary to curtail the power of slaveholding states.
Yeah, I saw that.
But he's like, by limiting the number of population in the count, specifically limiting the number of representatives that would be available in the slaveholding states, and they did it for the purpose of ending slavery, well before Abraham Lincoln, well before the Civil War. And he's pretty much saying, like, it was okay for them to do that. They were just trying to stop the slavery by using the 3/5 compromise.
On the floor, he said this?
Yes, he said this on the floor.
Out loud.
Yes, out loud.
On purpose.
That's Knoxville's representative, just so we're clear. One of them, not mine. I have Gloria Johnson's mine.
Sounds like he needs to be taught critical race theory.
Yeah, it's all connected, like we're saying, with schools. The lower income parts that can't afford an actual education just get fed bullshit. And like we said, you have to, if you don't educate yourself, which a lot of people don't do, like you were saying after school you realized it was bullshit. I think in school I realized what they were telling me was bullshit, so I looked it up on myself.
Well, I did on a lot of things, but I went to I went to school in Coffee County.
That's true.
For the most part. And, like, there were black kids in our school, but it wasn't very many. I think I remember a handful of Asian kids at my school, but it was very, very fucking white. So I wasn't, like, I was probably more progressive than others by just knowing not to say the N-word. None of it was taught. I didn't have anybody giving me any other perspective other than white people's perspective on things. So then I moved to Nashville, and I was around a lot of black people, and then I started getting a lot of education really quick, and yeah, it's just, that's when I started getting really pissed off. Like, how the fuck didn't I learn about this before?
Well, and a lot of people don't, which is why you get these groups popping up that that start saying white lives matter. Like, they don't think that white privilege exists. They don't think that the U.S. is inherently racist. They ignore all of that. They got blinders on.
I mean, they say it because they're privileged.
The people who say white lives matter are flat out racist. Like, they're not the ignorant, I don't know any better, I wasn't taught any better kind. They're the, we've seen your arguments, but fuck you, you're not white. We don't give a shit. Like, they have the ability to learn. They've seen the information. They reject it because we're white, we're superior.
Where would you put the All Lives Matter camp?
A mix. I think there's there are definitely that movement is being fueled by white supremacists.
Yeah, they want to confuse
in a
muddy
more
water.
sugar-coated way, because they want normies to jump on to All Lives Matter. It was all created to discredit Black Lives Matter, but there's a lot of people, I think, that do the All Lives Matter, that they don't fully understand what they're saying. They're in their little circles. And
that doesn't mean they're not tools of racist or tools
they're
of
absolutely
the
tools.
Republican Party.
Absolutely.
I don't have any sympathy for them at this point anymore. The internet's out there. Like, everyone has access to the same information, and their rabbit holes took them in a different direction.
Right. I mean,
they can slowly chip away at them, too. All I have to do is just get them to believe one thing, and then just start slowly feeding them more and more.
And that's what the right likes to do. But I've seen Democrats saying things like all lives matter, or not all cops are bad, or cops do good things. But those are going to be the more centrist Democrats that try to see both sides.
I won't say his name.
We know.
I almost did. Enlightened centrist view.
Right, and to your point, yeah, they don't believe that all cops are bad, but then they fail to realize that when there's a bad cop and then 10 cops around him that don't do shit about that one, that makes them all fucking bad cops.
Well, they also don't realize that it's a systematic issue.
It really is. And I know we've discussed that in our
when you
previous
benefit from the system, then you don't have an incentive to even look into if it is bad or not.
Well, it'd be great if we'd start teaching our kids about this shit, but we won't be doing that in Tennessee.
Right. Or Ohio, and like I said before, I would expect more and more of this to be popping up in other states.
It's all these. The Republicans are just, they got a playbook that they're following and introducing.
They
at
do, and
different times.
There's a reason why they hate Hollywood too, is because Hollywood is
the liberal elites.
The liberal elites are pushing this. Like, I think that HBO has done more to educate people on black issues than the school system has.
Netflix too, actually,
yeah.
with 13.
So, and that's why they hate Hollywood. Like I was saying, like I hate a lot of shit about the Oscars, but like a lot of the movies that were up for Best Picture were pretty leftist. Mm-hmm. Like, if not, a lot of times Hollywood will look at race issues in a negative light, but I didn't think it was super bad this year. But that's why they hate, like, but besides a political war, there's also a culture war that's going on, and they are losing that bad. And when we were talking other weeks about companies, woke companies, they still do it for monetary reasons or capitalist reasons,
right.
But that's a sign of which culture war is winning. When Nike chooses the side of Kilpatrick over the racists, that's not because they actually give a shit. They just see that that's the direction the culture war is going. So this is all in a response to that. If they need to educate people there so that they watch the Duggars instead of watching the new HBO like Lovecraft Country or Watchmen or the Netflix shows that Al said. Like, there's a culture war going on top of, and this is the laws with education are in reaction to what the culture is actually trying to teach people now.
Well, I think in addition to that, though, is that typically when there is a Democratic president, they tend to shit all over their policies, but a lot of, at least recently, Biden's policies or actions are at least somewhat widely popular, so they're having difficulty finding something to target, so they're creating this bullshit and attacking things that aren't even a problem. As you mentioned earlier, they couldn't cite even a source, but they're still popping up all over the place. So I think it's another reactionary from the GOP.
I mean, yeah, America's just kind of. I mean, like the South is going to hold the whole country back. The South is held back. The South is fucked.
I don't. Ohio's jumping on that. We
Ohio's
can't even
basically the
fucking.
South.
But we can't fucking.
Yeah.
Michigan, Washington, all of these states across the U.S. except maybe California. But California probably has legislators that are trying to push this stuff too. It's not a fucking South problem. We are past the South, North, the Dixie, all that bullshit. It's non-existence. This is now a United States problem. It's in every fucking state. It's in every city is dealing with this in some way or another. We can't, I get sick of hearing, oh, it's a southern state, that's why. Check your own fucking backyards. Because it's there too. No matter what state you're living in, this shit is in your state. Like, we have to address that this is a national problem. It's not North, not South.
Before we wrap up, can I make fun of, speaking of Ohio, you guys may not have seen this, so I'm going to spring this on you and see how you guys think about this. So in Ohio, on a Zoom meeting to discuss harsher penalties for distracted driving, one of Ohio's representatives was in his car with a virtual background, driving around, discussing this. Seatbelt clearly visible. What an idiot. Have you guys seen that?
I have not.
It was the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. Like, on purpose, this cat tried to get away with, and he's speaking, so it's gallery, it's not the, so I don't know if all of our listeners have used Zoom before, but they have it on speaker view, so when he's speaking, he's the front and center person, and you're like, that's a seatbelt, brah, and like I can see you looking around, and they're actively discussing harsher penalties for distracted driving, and this cat thinks a digital background is going to fool everyone. It's a stupid
Did he get called out?
Oh yeah, well it's blown up, like
Good.
this shit is going viral. So I mean, I'm not sure that they did anything in the meeting, but
So the background was his home office.
the background was his home office. So he put his image of his home. And then he's there, and you can clearly see, like, he's using a mobile device, which I didn't even think you could do digital backgrounds on, but apparently he had a way to do so. But clearly visible is seatbelt, and you can see him, like, looking as he's, driving. It was the dumbest thing I've seen, but it's popped up. It's blown up on Reddit. And
people just aren't smart. Why are they fucking in charge of our laws?
Marjorie Taylor.
Oh, my God. Oh, my fucking God. Like, I guess without having any committees, being on any committees and shit, they've done a pretty good job of like isolating her. Because I think the last thing I remember seeing wasn't she trying to get somebody else off of committees?
Well, they're all going after Liz Cheney right now. I know she went after Maxine Waters after her comments right before the Chauvin verdict. But
Yeah,
to
that
give
was
you
great.
to give you an idea of what the GOP is doing, they're targeting Liz Cheney because of her remarks about Trump and the January 6th insurrection, but fucking nothing for Matt Gaetz. So that tells you what their fucking agenda is. I mean, they're just Trump blowhard
goes back
assholes.
to the Duggar thing too. That's just
if you say Duggar one more time, it's Duggar.
Whatever.
I let you get away with it too many times, sir.
That's their brand. Their brand is pedophilia. Like, libertarians want it legalized.
Well, they'd argue that's not technically pedophilia because it's children after puberty.
Yeah, children. Yeah, technically pedophilia is prepubescent. So,
and like I don't even know the term they use. The only people who know the other word for children after puberty are fucking pedophiles. We're gonna keep using that word,
right?
Because it's all the fucking same to me.
Right, and so you mentioned that since we don't really hear from Trump, but Al, you stumbled across something today. His
So he's blocked from Twitter, Facebook, and all of that.
Facebook reaffirmed his ban.
Oh yeah.
Yep, Facebook reaffirmed his ban.
Well, he decided to create his own platform, but by his own platform, What he's saying is he can post on it, you can share his post, but nobody else can post, comment, or interact in any way. It's just this whole website where he posts like little... It's a blog with tweets.
But it's a blog that he treats as his own Twitter because fuck you for sending it to me, but I clicked it. And it was like seriously reading tweets from him in a much longer fashion. And I'm like, fuck you, Al.
He's not limited to the...
He's not. And so, yeah, they're longer. They're just as incoherent and fucking give you a headache to read. He's been fucking, I think the last, 6 posts in a row just, shitting all over Liz Cheney because she's the one semi-sane
She's
individual.
Trying to be, but, just leave the party, bro. The Republican Party's dead.
No, she's still a hardcore fucking Republican.
Yeah, because the Republican Libertarian Party is so far right now that she's trying to be like her father type of Republican.
Yeah, but she's still blasting the socialist, the Green New Deal, and basically every
exactly.
Republican
Still
talking
a
point.
Republican, but still, I don't want to be a huge fucking racist.
Did you guys see that interview with because we don't watch Fox News, but someone on Fox News was interviewing her, and she's just going off a list of basically fuck everything the Democrats are doing, and then the Fox News host well, if Trump ran in 2024, would you support him? And she goes, no. And he's like the dead inside look, he did not expect that answer whatsoever fucking ever. He was like watching someone die inside on air. It was the funniest shit. I don't know if you guys seen that clip. All right, guys, we're way over time. That's going to wrap us up for episode 14 of Apostates on the Fringe. I want to thank you all for joining us again. As a reminder, you can find us on social media on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to get the show notes or contact the show, visit us at apostatepod.com. As a reminder, I will be including the information for the homeless information down in Austin. Thanks for joining us. We will see you guys next week. As a reminder, please give us a 5-star review everywhere you can and share the show out with your friends.
And don't be a centrist bitch. Pick a side.
Modernism sucks, yo.
Thank you all very much.
Apostates on the Fringe. Apostates on the Fringe.
The views and opinions of the hosts of Apostates on the Fringe do not represent the views and opinions of the Atheist Society of Knoxville. For links to all our musical contributors, go to apostatepod.com and check the About Us page. A big thank you to Michael Scott Arden, who allows the show to use his full catalog.